The scruffy stray dog stood frozen as the biker's laughter echoed around him. His ribs protruded sharply beneath his patchy fur, and his tail tucked instinctively between his legs. Yet, despite his fearful posture, something unusual burned in. His amber eyes, not just fear, but a quiet intelligence, as if he understood far more than any stray should. Rook swung off his motorcycle with a creak of leather, his boots crunching on gravel as he approached. The dog didn't run, didn't growl, just watched with those unsettlingly knowing eyes. "Bet he's never had a decent meal in his life," chuckled Viper, the wiry biker with skull tattoos snaking up his arms. He tossed a half-eaten burger toward the dog. The scent of greasy meat made the stray's mouth water, but he hesitated. Years on the streets had taught him nothing came without a price. Rook crouched down, his shadow swallowing the trembling animal. "What's wrong, Mutt? Too good for our scraps." He pulled a firecracker from his pocket and lit it with a flick of his lighter. The sudden bang sent the dog scrambling back, his heart hammering against his bony chest. The bikers roared with laughter, but it died in their throats when the dog stopped, turned, and came back. Step by cautious step, he approached Rook again, his tail giving the faintest wag. Not submission, not fear. Something far more dangerous. Forgiveness. Rook's smirk faltered. No stray had ever come back after being scared like that. He reached out, half expecting to be bitten, but the dog just sniffed his fingers, then licked them tentatively. "Damn," Viper muttered. Dogs got more guts than sense. As the bikers mounted up to leave, Rook hesitated. He glanced back at the scrawny animal watching them go. Something about those eyes haunted him. Little did Rook know, this stray had been watching them for weeks, knew their roots, their secrets. And as the motorcycles faded into the distance, the dog turned and vanished into the shadows with purpose. He wasn't just any stray, and this wasn't over. 3 days. Latith abandoned gas station reeked of oil and stale beer as the bikers gathered around their usual spot. Rook couldn't shake the memory of that dog's eyes. "Still thinking about that mutt?" Viper teased, cracking open another beer. Before Rook could answer, a familiar shape emerged from the darkness. The stray stood at the edge of their circle, something clamped in his jaws. "Is that ... my wallet?" one biker exclaimed, patting his empty pocket. The dog dropped it carefully, then backed away, watching, not threatening, just ... waiting. Rook's blood ran cold when he saw what else the dog had brought, a small black package that definitely wasn't supposed to be here tonight. The package that connected them to the Kingsman. How the hell ... Viper's voice shook. The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. This wasn't just a hungry stray. This was a reckoning. As the bikers scrambled in panic, the dog simply sat, his intelligent eyes tracking their every move, waiting to see what they'd do next, waiting to see if they'd prove themselves worthy of the second chance he'd just given them. In that moment, Rook realized the truth. Sometimes salvation comes on for pause, and sometimes the weakest-looking creatures turn out to be the strongest of all. The question was, would they be smart enough to listen? 1 month Latith old shelter dog wagged his tail as Rook clipped on his new collar. No more ribs showing, no more flinching at loud noises. "Ready to go home, soul?" Rook asked, scratching behind those ears that had once flattened in fear. Viper leaned against his bike, watching. "Never. Thought I'd see the day Rook, Ironheart Malone, became a dog dad." Rook didn't care about the teasing. Not when Soul licked his hand with that same quiet forgiveness that had changed everything. Some called it a rescue. Rook knew the truth. The dog had rescued them, and as Soul climbed happily into the sidecar of Rook's motorcycle, the former stray proved once again that sometimes the most powerful souls come in the most unexpected packages. The firecracker's fuse hissed to life in Rook's calloused fingers, its sputtering flame casting jagged shadows across the biker's leather-clad faces. The stray didn't bolt like they expected. Instead, he sat down, actually sat, his matted tail sweeping gravel in slow arcs. Those unsettlingly intelligent eyes never left Rook's face. "Damn mutt's broken, or something," Viper muttered, his skull tattoo stretching as he frowned. The explosion cracked through the twilight like a gunshot. For one suspended heartbeat, the dog vanished into a cloud of smoke and flying gravel. The bikers whooped, already turning back to their beers, when a shape emerged from the dissipating smoke. The stray dot not running away, walking toward them. His left ear now bore a fresh tear, blood trickling down the ragged fur, but his gaze remained steady. A low whine escaped his throat. Not pain, but something far more dangerous. Disappointment. Rook's beer bottle slipped from suddenly numb fingers, shattering on the asphalt. The sound seemed to wake something in the wiry biker with the skull tattoo. "Jesus, Rook," Viper breathed. "I think you just made friends with the devil's own mutt." The dog limped forward until he stood directly in front of Rook's motorcycle. Then, with deliberate slowness, he lowered his head and deposited something at the biker leader's boot. A motorcycle key, Rook's spare key. How the hell? Rook's voice cracked. That key had been in his locked saddlebag since yesterday's ride. The biker's laughter died in their throats as the dog turned and walked away, his uneven gait somehow dignified. Behind them, the setting sun painted the highway blood red, casting the stray's elongated shadow across all 6 motorcycles, like a spectral judge passing sentence. 3 revelations that night's saddlebag incident. When Rook checked his supposedly secure saddlebag, he found everything neatly rearranged, tools sorted by size, his emergency cash still folded under the wrench, but now with a muddy paw print on the bills. The only thing missing was the Kingsman's package that wasn't supposed to be there. Viper's discovery at 2:17 a.m. Viper stepped outside for a smoke and found the stray sitting sentry by their bikes, not threatening, not begging, just ... guarding. When Viper reached out, the dog pressed something cold into his palm. The silver cross Viper's little sister had given him, lost 3 weeks prior. The morning after dawn revealed 6 piles stacked neatly beside each bike. Every item any biker had reported missing in the past month: Kingsman's package, Essex, greasy napkins from the diner, each folded into perfect squares. Rook stared at his pile, which included his dead brother's Zippo he'd thought gone forever. His hands shook. This wasn't a stray. This was something else entirely. The bikers found the dog waiting at the highway's edge that afternoon. Rook approached slowly, removing his cut-off gloves in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We're listening," he said, voice rough. The stray studied them, each in turn, then turned and trotted toward the abandoned rail yard. What they found there would change everything. But that's another chapter in the legend of the highway dog who taught hardened bikers about loyalty, redemption, and the unbreakable spirit of the unwanted. The firecracker's echo still hung in the air when the stray dog did the impossible. He came back, not with his tail between his legs, but with a quiet dignity that made Rook's stomach twist. The bikers' laughter died in their throats as the scruffy animal limped toward them. Each step measured and deliberate. Blood dripped from a fresh cut on the dog's ear, painting crimson streaks through his patchy fur. Yet his amber eyes held no anger, only a profound question that cut deeper than any knife. Why would you do that? Rook's fingers twitched toward the dog's injured ear. 20 years of prison tattoos couldn't hide how his hand shook. His voice cracked like a teenager's. The other bikers shifted uncomfortably, their boots scraping against gravel. Then the stray did something extraordinary. He licked Rook's outstretched fingers. A ragged breath escaped Viper's lips. Holy hell, after all that, he's still... The words trailed off as the dog turned and began walking away, pausing just once to glance back over his shoulder. The bikers followed without discussion, drawn by something deeper than curiosity. The stray led them down a service road to the abandoned rail yard, his limp growing more pronounced with each step. Moonlight revealed his destination, a collapsed boxcar with a makeshift shelter beneath inside. They found 6 carefully stacked motorcycle parts, all items reported stolen last month. A water bowl made from a hubcap and curled in the far corner. 5 whimpering puppy SD bikers froze. The math wasn't hard. 6 missing items, 5 puppies, 1 mother who'd been stealing not for herself, but for them. Rook sank to his knees in the dirt. The proud president of the Ironheart's MC, a man who'd taken 3 bullets without flinching, broke down watching the stray nuzzle her babies. Dawn found 6 hardened bikers performing the most unexpected heists of their lives. Viper stood lookout with his switchblade out, not to fight, but to threaten any approaching Testu. Prospects carefully loaded the puppy-filled crate into a side Karuk, cradled the injured mother against his leather vest, her blood staining the club's insignia, the 24-hour vet clinic. The receptionist's eyes widened at the sight of tattooed bikers crowding the waiting room, their rough hands gently offering water to whining puppies. "You boys rescue these strays?" she asked. Rook's voice was rougher than usual when he answered, "Nah, ma'am. They rescued us." The annual Ironhearts rally looked different now. A no fireworks rule, strictly enforced. Every bike had a custom dog bed. Patrolling the perimeter was the club's new mascot, a scar-eared stray and her 5 now-grown pups, each wearing their own tiny leather cuts as Rook scratched behind his old enemy's ears. He often thought about that night, how close he'd come to being the monster everyone believed he was. How a starving stray had seen something worth saving in him. And when new recruits asked about the club's unusual traditions, Rook would just smile and say, "Every man deserves a second chance. Even us." The roar of the bikers' engines faded into the twilight as the scruffy dog watched from the roadside. His torn ear twitched, still stinging from the firecracker's blast. But it wasn't pain that made his ribs ache, it was the memory of Rook's fleeting moment of tenderness, so quickly. Buried beneath bravado, the dog turned toward the dense woods, his paws carrying him along a hidden path he knew better than his own heartbeat. Brambles tugged at his fur as he descended into a dry creek bed, where the scent of damp earth and rusted metal grew stronger. What the stray knew for 3 moons. The dog had watched these men. He knew their Wednesday night meetups at the abandoned Sinclair Station. Viper's secret stash of letters from a sister in Rahabo. Rook always patted his left pocket, twice checking for his dead brother's dog, Tagstway. Their laughter turned sharp when the Kingsmen were mentioned. He would show them what happened when you kicked a dog who remembered everything. Back at their hideout, Rook couldn't shake the image of those golden eyes. That wasn't just some mutt, he muttered, polishing his Harley's fuel tank with unnecessary force. Viper snorted. It's a damn stray, Rook. Probably rabid. The crash of metal outside sent them all reaching for weapons. There, in the pool of garage light, sat the dog with Rook's missing saddlebag between his paws. The one containing their payment from the Kingsman, the one that had vanished last Thursday. As the bikers stared, the dog did something impossible. He nosed open the bag's flap, revealing not the expected cash, but Viper's stolen registration, Papa Sarchild's pink hair, ribbon belonging to Rook's niece, the Kingsman's ledger with every debt circled in muddy paw. Prince Jesus Christ whispered, "A prospect, he's been auditing us." The dog held Rook's gaze, then turned and vanished into the night, leaving them with the terrible understanding. This stray didn't want their pity. He wanted justice. Dawn found Rook sitting alone at the picnic table, the ledger open before him. The dog watched from the tree line as the biker president made 3 calls. To the Kingsmento Child Service Esto and Knockhill Shelter when Rook finally looked up, the stray was gone. But on the table lay one final message: Viper's missing switchblade. Its blade snapped clean in half. A warning and a gift. The newly christened Iron Hounds MC still rode every Sunday. But now their convoy included a 3-legged pit bull in Viper's sidecar Rook's adopted mutt, with one torn ear, riding shotgun prospect jackets, now featuring a paw print patchet, the annual memorial run for fallen bikers. Rook always leaves an extra beer at the roadside, not for a human brother, but for the stray who taught him that even the hardest hearts can learn to heal. The abandoned gas station stood like a graveyard of the American highway, its broken pumps sagging under decades of neglect. Rook leaned against his bike, the familiar ritual of cracking open a beer doing nothing to quiet the unease crawling up his spine. That damn dog's eyes haunted him, not just their intelligence, but the quiet judgment in them. Viper blew smoke rings into the buzzing halo of the floodlight. Quit staring at the trees, Rook. Mutts probably 10 miles by now. Then the cans started rattling. A metallic clink clink echoed from the service bay. The bikers froze as a shadow detached itself from the oil stains. The stray emerged carrying a rusted hubcap in his jaws, placing it deliberately at Rook's boots. Inside lay a Kingsman patch Rook's missing switchbladia Polaroid of their last meetup. That's impossible, Viper whispered. The photo had been taken inside their locked clubhouse. The dog sat back on his haunches, blood from his injured ear matting the fur around his collar. The message was clear. I go where you go. Rook's fingers trembled as he flipped the photo. Scrawled in grease pencil were the words, "They know about the 12th. The bikers erupted. That's the Kingsman's hit date." How the health astray barked once, sharp as a gunshot, then trotted to the station's boarded-up office. With a nudge of his nose, a loose board swung open, revealing a puppy nest lined with stolen club bandanassics, carefully arranged spark plugs, one for each bike. The Kingsman's ledger, open to their betrayal, plans Rook's beer bottle shattered on the concrete. This wasn't a stray, this was a spy. Moonlight bled through the broken roof as Rook crouched before the dog. You've been ... protecting us. The dog limped forward, pressing his muzzle into Rook's palm. In that touch flowed generations of unwritten canine wisdom. Even strays choose their packs. When the Kingsman's bikes roared up at midnight, they found 6 armed Ironhearts, and one scarred sentinel standing between them and certain death. Years later, bikers still tell the legend, how the Kingsman's bullets miraculously missed that night, how Rook carried a bleeding stray 5 miles to the vet, how the Ironhearts became the Iron Hounds, their cuts now bearing a golden-eyed guardian patch. And if you ride past that old gas station at dawn, old-timers swear you'll see shadows moving, 6 men and 1 dog, still keeping watch over the broken road the black packet skittered across, the oil-stained concrete coming to rest against Rook's boot. The biker's laughter died mid-breath, replaced by a silence so thick Viper could hear his own pulse thundering in his ears. Rook's tattooed hand hovered over the packet like it might bite. "That's not," his voice cracked. "This was supposed to be in the safe." The stray sat back on his haunches, pink tongue lolling. His golden eyes tracked every twitch of the bikers' faces, Viper's dawning horror, the prospect's confusion, Rook's fingers curling into fists. Then the dog did something unnatural. He nodded toward the packet. Viper lunged first. "Goddamn narc dog." His switchblade flashed in the sodium lights. The stray didn't flinch. A blur of matted fur, and suddenly Viper was on his back. The dog standing on his chest, not biting, just pinning him with impossible strength. The knife lay 3 feet away, its blade snapped clean in half. Rook's military training kicked in. He'd seen this before in K9 units, in war zones. The precision, the control. "Stand down." The command tore from his throat before he realized he was speaking to his own men. The dog released Viper and trotted to the spilled saddlebag. With deliberate movements, he nosed aside the leather jacket to reveal a Kingsman member's driver's license, surveillance photos of the bikers' homes. A handwritten note burned them out. 12th at moonrise. Rook's knees hit concrete. The package wasn't drugs, it was a death warrant. The Kingsman had turned on them. The stray wind pawing at a folded photograph beneath the evidence. Rook's breath caught when he smoothed it out. A childhood snapshot of him with his brother at Coney Island. Thought lost in the fire that killed him. Tears cut tracks through the grease on Rook's face. You've been trying to warn us." The dog yipped once, then vanished into the night. 1 week later, when the Kingsmen came riding, they found an empty clubhouse. Every incriminating document gone, and spray-painted across the bar in paw-print stencils. The pack watches thee say, if you ride Highway 41 at dusk, you might see them 6 motorcycles with a scarred stray running point, his howls keeping time with the engines. The Ironhearts are gone. Rook's knuckles turned white around the wrench as the biker's argument escalated. The packet lay between them like a live grenade, its black tape gleaming under the flickering garage lights. "We're being set up," Viper hissed, his skull tattoo stretching as his jaw clenched. That mutt was no stray, he was trained. Military, maybe. A cold realization slithered down Rook's spine. He remembered the dog's scars, too precise for street fights. The way he'd moved between their bikes like a shadow. The intelligence in those golden eyes that had looked straight through his soul. The dog had left more than just the packet. As Rook searched the area, he found chewed motorcycle wires only on the Kingsman-affiliated bikes. A perfect circle of dog urine around their hidden drug stations. Dead brother's dog tag. Missing for years, placed neatly on his saddle. "This isn't." "Warning," Rook muttered. "This is a goddamn audit." At 3:17 a.m., Rook rode alone to the abandoned rail yard. The stray waited atop a rusted boxcar, silhouetted against the moon. "Who sent you?" Rook's voice echoed through the empty yard. The dog leaped down, landing silently. He circled Rook's bike once, then dropped something at his boots, a Kingsman patch crusted with old blood, as dawn broke. Rook understood. The stray had belonged to his little brother's canine unit. Kingsman had set up the fatal Ferethus dog had. Spent 2 years tracking them when the Kingsman attacked at week's end. They found every weapon jammed with chewed rags, their escape routes marked with urine, watching from the rooftops. A scarred sentinel with fire in his eyes. Today, the Ironhound's MC rides with a new patch of war dog's face over crossed bones. They say if you listen when the midnight trains roll through, you can hear the ghostly echo of barking keeping pace with the engines. The campfires glow painted, flickering shadows across the old man's face as he studied the fabric in Sol's teeth. His calloused fingers traced the faint chemical residue, not just any drugs, but the Kingsman's signature blend cut with military-grade explosives. "Christ, boy," he whispered, his voice rough as gravel. "They're mixing Semtex with their meth now." Sol dropped to his haunches, his intelligent eyes reflecting the flames. With deliberate movements, he pawed at a specific page in the journaler, detailed sketch of the Kingsman's compound, complete with guard rotations and weak points. Dates circled in red ink matched the lunar cycle. The old man, a retired canine handler named Elias McCrallet, out a slow breath. He'd trained Sol after the dog washed out of military service for being too independent. Now that independence was about to save lives, by midnight, their strategy was set. The distraction, Sol would trigger the Kingsman's motion sensors near the fuel-deep path. Delivery, Elias would plant evidence of the Kingsman's betrayal at the Ironheart's clubhouse at Reckoning. Both would watch as the bikers destroyed each other, but as Sol turned to leave, Elias grabbed his collar. "Wait." He pulled a faded photo from his walleter. Younger Elias, standing with Rook's brother at K9 graduation. The kid deserves to know the truth about who killed his brother. Sol's tail gave one slow wag. The plan had changed. Under the next full moon, chaos erupted at the Kingsman compound. Guard dogs went silent as Sol moved through their ranks like a ghost. Security feeds glitched at precise moments. Then the ultimate insult: someone had pissed in every Kingsman member's boot. Meanwhile, at the Ironheart's bar, Rook discovered surveillance photos of his niece's school bus. Root Vipper found his sister's address circled in Redand in the basement. Elias left his final gift, the Kingsman's accountant, trussed up with Sol's old service. Leishwan, the Kingsman came riding for blood at dawn. They found the Ironhearts waiting in formation, every escape route blocked by Sheriff's deputies, and perched on a rusted oil drum, a scarred Malinois with a detonator in his jaws. Sirens wailed. Rook locked eyes with Sol across the battlefield. In that moment, he understood this was no stray. This was vengeance wrapped in fur. A four-legged reckoning, years in the making. The newspaper called it the biker war that never was. But in the mountains, they tell a different story of an old man and a war dog who taught outlaws about loyalty. Now, the Ironhearts ride with new patches, a paw print over crossed wrenches there. Clubhouse renamed Sol's. Watch, and every prospect must volunteer at the K9 veteran shelterers for Sol. Some say he still walks patrol with Elias. Others claim he's training a new generation of strays. But on quiet nights, when the wind howls just right, bikers swear they can hear the echo of purposeful paws keeping pace with their engines, a reminder that even the hardest roads sometimes lead home. The bikers' flashlights cut frantic arcs through the darkness. their beams trembling in unsteady hands. The growls seemed to come from everywhere at once, below the rustling bushes, behind the sagging chain-link fence, even from the branches above, where shadows moved with unnatural silence. Viper's knife glinted as he spun in a panicked circle, there by the old pumps. But when the light hit the spot, there was nothing but an oily puddle reflecting the moon. Then came the sound that stopped their hearts, a deep, guttural snarl from directly beneath Rook's bike. The leader froze, sweat trickling down his temple, as something warm and wet dripped onto his boot. Soul stepped into the flickering light of their dying campfire, his scarred muzzle curled in what could almost be called a smile. Behind him, shapes emerged from the darkness. A three-legged pit bull with a police harness still strapped to its chest, a wiry greyhound missing an ear. Its racing tattoos faded, but visibly massive mastiff with prison guard insignia branded into its flank. Rook's breath hitched. These weren't strays. They were veterans' discarded guardians, just like Soul. The pack advanced in perfect formation, herding the bikers toward the abandoned garage. Inside, the men discovered the wall of shame, Polaroids of every cruel act they'd committed against Reyes, offering their stolen goods neatly stacked beside bowls of fresh water. Ultimatum, a single dog tag hanging from a nail. Its inscription, reading, "Loyalty is Ernadessel," stepped forward and dropped Rook's brother's dog tags at his feet, the ones he'd reported stolen years ago. The message was clear: "We've been watching longer than you know." Dawn found the bikers still sitting in that garage, the dog tag clutched in Rook's shaking hands. Outside, the pack had vanished whole except Soul, who waited by the road with a leash in his teeth. One by one, the Ironhearts made their choice. Viper volunteered at the Knockhill shelter every Tuesday to prospect, started a rescue. Motorcycle sidecar program. Rook adopted a one-eyed German shepherd named Majorand on the anniversary of that night. They all rode to the abandoned gas station where fresh paw prints always appeared in the dust, leading toward the rising sun. Years later, when Rook's niece asked why his club patch now featured a dog's head over crossed wrenches, he'd smile and say, "Some angels don't need wings, kiddo. Some just need 4 legs and a second chance." The flare's crimson glow painted macabre shadows across the bikers' faces as they stumbled back, forming a defensive circle. Bolt's panicked breathing came in ragged gasps as Soul blocked his escape. The dog's scarred lips pulled back to reveal teeth that gleamed like ivory daggers in the hellish light. Then the howling began. From every direction, answering cries rose. In the darkness, not the random yips of coyotes, but the disciplined command response of a military canine unit. The trees seemed to vibrate with the sound, shaking loose a rain of pine needles that pattered against the bikers' leather jackets like falling shrapnel. Elias stepped into the light, his gnarled hands holding no weapon, yet radiating undeniable authority. The years had carved canyons into his face, but his spine remained straight as a rifle barrel. "You boys ever wonder why this dog's been shadowing you?" His voice carried the weight of decades spent commanding both men and canines. "Soul here served 3 tours with the 75th Ranger Regiment. Sniffed out more IEDs than your whole club's got brain cells." Rook's wrench clattered to the ground as the pieces fell into place. The dog's uncanny intelligence, his tactical movements, the way he'd known exactly where to find their secrets. At Ilios's whistle, 6 more dogs materialized from the shadows, each more battle-scarred than the last. Brutus, a mastiff with a police canine tattoo, still visible beneath his mangled ear ghost. A white shepherd, missing a hind leg, his service harness frayed but intact. A Rottweiler mix with field medic symbols. Branded into his flank, they formed a perfect semicircle behind Soul, their collective gaze boring into the bikers with unsettling intelligence. Elias pulled a smoke-stained notebook from his coat. "Let's tally your sins, shall we?" Page after page documented their cruelty. Dates they'd kicked strays at the Septemleven listens, plates from their dog racing bets, even the night they'd abandoned that pregnant pit bull by the interstate. Saw stepped forward, dropping a mud-caked object at Rook's boots. His brother's dog tags. Lost the night of the clubhouse fire. The old man's voice softened. "You've got two options tonight, boys. Become the monsters everyone thinks you are." He nodded to the pack, their muscles tensing in unison. Or prove that even the hardest cases can change. For the first time in his life, Rook felt true fear. Not of death, but of the terrifying possibility of redemption. 1 year later, the Ironhounds MC rode their first charity run. Prospect jackets now featured a paw-print Pachivery. Bike had a custom rescue dog, sidecar Thea. Clubhouse served as a no-kill shelter by day on. If you visit that abandoned gas station at dawn, old-timers swear you can still see shadows moving. 6 bikers and 7 dogs, keeping eternal watch over the broken and the lost. The first rays of sunlight cut through the gasoline-scented air, illuminating the bikers' haggard faces. Rook stared at the wrench Soul had returned, its chrome surface reflecting his own exhausted eyes. Eyes that had seen too much darkness, but now glimpsed something like hope. Viper collapsed onto an overturned oil drum, his skull tattoos seeming less menacing in the morning light. All this time, his voice cracked. "We thought we were the predators." Behind them, the pack of veteran dogs sat in perfect formation, their watchful eyes tracking every twitch of the biker's hands. Brutus, the 3-legged mastiff, panted softly, his scarred muzzle curled in what might have been approval. Rook reached into his cut-off vest pocket and produced a rusted key. "Storage locker behind Lou's auto," he said, tossing it to Elias. "Enough fentanyl to kill half the county." His jaw worked silently for a moment before adding, "My brother, ... He was trying to stop the Kingsman's pipeline when they ... Soul wind softly and nudged Rook's knee with his wet nose. The dog's warm breath fogged against the biker's leather-clad leg as memories surfaced. A younger Rook visiting his brother's K9 unit, laughing as Soul demonstrated his bomb-sniffing skills. By noon, 3 things happened in rapid succession. The sheriff found the Kingsman's drug cache with an anonymous Typical News reported an unrelated raid on the Kingsman Clubhouse Civery. Stray dog in the county mysteriously received fresh bowls of water and stay cone. Month later, the rebranded Iron Hounds MC unveiled their new clubhouse, a converted auto garage with climate-controlled kennels for rescue dogs, a free vet clinic every Tuesday, and above the bar, Soul's original service harness, displayed like a sacred relic. Rook stood before the gathered crowd, his voice rough with emotion. "We were lost, but sometimes," he scratched behind Soul's ears, the dog leaning into his touch, "sometimes the universe sends you a guardian in the last form you'd expect." Years later, when Rook passed from liver failure, too many battles, too much whiskey, they buried him on a hill overlooking the highway. The next morning, the groundskeeper found fresh paw prints circling the grave. And if you listen carefully when the midnight trains blow their whistles through the valley, old-timers swear you can hear the faint jingle of dog tags keeping rhythm. with the steel wheels a reminder that no soul is ever truly lost. If one faithful heart remembers. The morning air carried the scent of pine and gasoline as Rook wiped grease from his hands at Lou's auto garage. His new boss, a Vietnam vet with a pit bull named Daisy, didn't ask about his past, just showed him how to rebuild a carburetor with infinite patience. The rhythmic work soothed something broken inside him, just as the old man had promised it. Wood, across town, Viper stood in the shelter's wash bay, suds up to his elbows as he bathed a trembling chihuahua, missing an eye. "Easy there, little soldier," he murmured, his tattooed hands surprisingly gentle. The shelter manager watched in amazement as the once volatile biker crooned nursery rhymes to frighten strays deep in the woods. Elias knelt by a crystal-clear stream filling Saul's water bowl. The military dog tags around his neck glinted in the dappled sunlight, not his own, but those of Rook's brother Jake. "You did good, boy," Elias whispered, scratching the spot behind Saul's ears that made his hind leg thump. Jake would have been proud. Saul's wet nose nudged the dog tags. Then the faded photo tucked in Elias's Paquita, young K9. Handler and his grinning brother standing with a puppy soul between them. The last photo before Jake's accident, as seasons changed. Rook's garage became an unofficial shelter for injured working dogs. Viper started a program. Pairing rescue dogs with at-risk kids remaining Ironhearts formed a search and rescue team. With their adopted Strayson autumn evening, Rook found a familiar figure waiting at his garage door, Elias, with Soul sitting proudly at his side. The old man said nothing, just handed over Jake's dog tags and a new leash. Years later, when Elias passed peacefully in his sleep, the entire town came to the funeral, including a negraying Soul and a dozen rescued K9 South forming an honor guard. As the last prayer faded, Rook knelt before the old shepherd mix who had changed his life. "Ready to come home, partner?" Saul's tail thumped once. Then he turned and trotted toward the woods, pausing just long enough to glance back the same knowing look he'd given years before. Rook smiled through tears. Some souls weren't meant to be kept. Some were meant to run free, keeping watch over all the other lost things. As the sunset painted the trees gold, somewhere between highway and wilderness, a motorcycle engine rumbled to life, and, if you listened very closely, you might have heard the faintest answering howl. If this story moved you, Soul's journey with the Ironhearts reminds us that redemption comes in unexpected forms. Every day, countless animals and people are writing their own stories of transformation, stories that deserve to be told. Then you can be part of these powerful journeys by subscribing, so please subscribe for more inspiring tales of hope and second chances. See you in the next video.